Hey guys, EDDBUD here, and today I'm talking cold weather running. If you haven't done so already, remember to hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications when I launch those new videos. So recently the weather in the UK has taken a bit of a nosedive. It's really changed with some colder temperatures coming in, coating the land in some snow, sleet, frost and rain. So it's been time to dig out the colder weather running attire. So first tip for me today is to layer up those clothes. So if the temperatures drop a little bit, I typically grab a vest, like a race vest or something like that. I mean, we've got no other use for them right now, eh? On top of that, I go with a long sleeve technical top. Nothing too thick. It's all about the extra layers rather than the thickness of those layers. And I got a few different running jackets. My favourite's still that Nike Flash Shield jacket. That seems to be the ideal top attire, at least, if the temperatures drop below 1 Celsius or 33.8 Fahrenheit. I think my major issue really is having very little body fat. My arms get really cold really quickly. That aside, I've got the other problem when it gets really hot, that I just overheat too quickly. Sometimes I'm cursing myself even if I've just worn like a standard technical t-shirt. I just get way too hot. Layering seems to work really well for me as that sweat gets wicked away from the body, and in colder temps I can still get up to some really top tempos with very little effort really, and still feeling comfortable, I suppose the word is. When it gets to around 0 or 1, I often opt for the running tights as well. I've got a few brands, various different things, different costs. The best ones I've got though seem to be the Under Armour ones. I picked those up on a sale. I think they're around about £20. They work really well for me. Nice and fitting, and the quality's decent. They're not too thick, just flexible enough so it doesn't feel like it's impeding your stride. It doesn't feel like movement's restricted whatsoever. The cheaper Armour brand ones that I've got are okay. They've got pockets on them so you can store some stuff in there, but I don't find them quite as shaped for my stick-thin, overlong giraffe legs. They just don't seem to fit right. Those running tights seem to double up really well with my Aero Swift shorts from Nike. I've got about 4 pairs of those, and they don't feel too restrictive if you've put them on top of the tights. They're mega light and they seem to wash really well, and they last the test of time. Aside from one pocket disintegrating on the blue pair that I've got, I think they're from early 2019, so I can't complain too much. They've had a good innings. Those two items just seem to work in tandem really well, like Boone and Rocky, or Keith and Mick. Mrs. EDDBUD furnished me with some new running gloves at Christmas. These are Transformers. They've got these mitten pieces that go over the finger sections of the glove. I don't know what you call that, the where your fingers go. They're really great in the cold weather, unless it gets very wet, of which my fingers start getting really, really cold quickly. I just wish that the mitten part was a little bit thicker, but they're nice and light and easy to remove and wash really well. Those are some of the key factors for a piece of running attire. When the slate grey sky draws in and that mercury drops below 0, I whip out my Stance socks. They're really great to add a little extra warmth when you need it. I think most of mine are the Stance Athletic or the Tab variation. Stance hold up and stand up to the test of time. I think a couple of pairs that I've got have lasted well over 2 years, and they've still got a reasonable amount of cushion left within them. You know what socks get like when you've washed them too many times. They're just these ghosts of their former selves. You reminisce about those days when you first got them and they had that lovely cushion to them. They're never quite the same after the first day. I do find with Stance socks though, the lighter ones do seem to grab any stray colours that might be in the washing machine. I had a really lovely white pair and they turned into a mint green. You gotta look out for stray coloured items that might be left in the washing machine, which I never do. You have been warned. On my head, I tend to mix it up between the classic EDDBUD toque, or I opt for one of those high-gi bands because you can use it as a makeshift mask if you want to. Helps to keep the mind warm. And they're really good at regulating heat as well, especially if you don't have a lot of hair on the top of your head. And I know what that's like. Believe me, they're quite good at blocking out the wind. I find that to be my worst enemy while I'm out running, especially round here. It's always this nasty north wind. Feels like Jack Frost is against me. Those high-gi bands are really cheap, cost-effective, and you can even use them really in the summer if you don't want them on your head, just to sort of wipe away sweat from your brow. That whole setup was very effective last night. I took the Tempo Next Percent out for a quick burn around the local trading estate. It's pretty much the safest place right now. I think we had temperatures of about 2 Celsius, that nice northerly wind, and on the third mile managing to get up to about 6 minutes 33 per mile. Keeping the heart rate though nicely within tempo and threshold areas. I think with cold weather running attire, it's always about a careful balance between the intended pace and effort of the session and those conditions outside. Sometimes you can get it absolutely spot on, and other times not so much. I think shoe-wise, sometimes in these cold conditions, the shoe that you think's going to work the best doesn't. I think you're looking at balance again between the shoe's upper and the socks that you use. Fortunately, I've got quite a few pairs of socks now, various different thicknesses, so it's always a bit of guesswork as to which one's going to work out best with which shoe. I think top picks recently for me for colder weather has been the Legend React 3 Shield. Nice and padded and nice and plush. Certainly in the toe box area there, it really does feel like your foot's wrapped up in a blanket. In a nice way though. It sounds pretty terrible for a running shoe, but in fact in the wet and very cold weather, this one's worked out really well. I think it's always the toes that are most vulnerable to the cold weather, but the React Legend 3 Shield really does the trick. I've had no problems with these laces either. These toggles, they just seem to stay tight over the course of a run, no messing about. Always difficult to attend to laces when you've got gloves on. This one doesn't really smell too bad either, considering it's got saturated many times, unlike the Pegasus 36 Shield. That was the most odorous shoe of all time. I've got to say the Flyknit options as well from Nike are working really well. That React Infinity Run Flyknit 2 has been really great in the cold weather. Coats with a nice thick sock, and it feels like you're wearing a Christmas jumper on your foot. Even the Tempo Next Percent's worked out quite well recently in the cold weather. I mean, it almost feels like chainmail on your foot there, but it does seem to work. You wouldn't think it. When I first put this shoe on and took it out in some colder conditions, I really didn't think it was going to work, but it was fine. Getting very close to 100 miles into this shoe now, so look out for the 100 mile review very shortly. I think those shoes with that double layered mesh seem to work very well. Stuff like the Asics Novablast, for example, or that Reebok Symmetros as well. They seem to be quite successful in the cold conditions. Although I think when ice is involved, that's a whole nother story. I am very tempted to try the age-old runner's trick of putting some screws into the bottom of one of my shoes. I'm not sure which shoe to experiment with though. It's going to need something with some reasonable lugs to start with. Maybe those old Terra Kiger 5s could come in handy if we get some very icy weather. Shoes to avoid, I would suggest, would be the Alpha Fly. I can remember my foot freezing completely almost at one point wearing that shoe. The Dynablast or the Run Fast 3 just are not cut out for that cold weather running. Don't try it unless you're wearing grandma's socks. Let me know what your go-to running attire is, guys, down in the comments. I've got to be honest, in fairness, the UK's pretty mild. It does get a little cold here, but I think we're back up to about 7 or 8 degrees next week. A quick musical interlude for you. Back in 2002, a fantastic band appeared around the London area called the Libertines. They released some smashing tracks, and there were some very chaotic gigs I can remember around that period. From their debut album, Up the Bracket, there's some real standout tracks. Death on the Stairs was always one of my favourites, and I particularly like the track Horror Show as well. The very last track on the album too really captured the best parts of the band for me, which was called I Get Along. I think though my favourite Libertines track will always be Don't Look Back Into the Sun. I do recall that one's produced by Bernard Butler, and I believe he actually plays some of the guitar parts on the track. That is a winner of an indie track. One of the best indie tracks ever recorded. Bernard Butler just got the right feel there. It's immediate, there's not too much messing around, no weird sound effects or anything. He just captured the band's energy, and that's what a good producer should do. So go and check out some tracks from the Libertines. Their debut album's pretty good. It's called Up the Bracket. Okay, thanks for tuning in, guys. I very much appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, remember to hit that subscribe button. Click the bell below for notifications, and it helps the channel out if you give this video a thumbs up, like, and share this video with your running buddies. My name's EDDBUD, and I'll be seeing you